I will say that she has become this lightning rod, and I don't think it's fair because I don't think she's asking for it. She has now become, unfortunately and very unfairly, the face of white female privilege in college basketball because of her own dominance.
Now to your Caitlin Clark. How much conversation you think we'll have about her on Sunday if she breaks that record? I think it's going to be a big deal.
You know what? I know one thing. You put me as a collaborator on that Instagram reel on Caitlin Clark, and I'm getting my mentions, and I'm like, wow, I must have put up a great photo. And like my Instagram has never been that busy. I felt like one of those hot models. I was like, God, and it's all Caitlin Clark, and people are killing Cheryl. I'm not going to call her Cheryl Snopes because she doesn't have her facts right. Neither do they. But Cheryl Swoops is taking a beating. I now know ad nauseum, Miss Clark does not take 40 shots a game. It's been hammered into my head that she takes well less. Now, here's the thing, though, with the public. Certain people are telling me she takes 19 shots a game. Other people are telling me she takes 23. Folks, let's get the story straight. Let's come up with a number. This is all math. We don't have to, fudge the numbers. But it's as big a story as women's basketball is going to be, short of a Final Four rematch between LSU, Angel Reese, and the Iowa Hawkeyes. I will say that she has become this lightning rod, and I don't think it's fair because I don't think she's asking for it. She has now become, unfortunately and very unfairly, the face of white female privilege in college basketball because of her own dominance.
Do white females have privilege in the sports world?
Obviously, Caitlin Clark does because the derision, and I'm not saying that she deserves it. I think it's incredibly unfair. I see this a lot in boxing. When a really good foreign fighter from another country comes and starts taking headlines and gets a lot of attention from us media members, there's a certain faction of fans that make this very cultural and downright racial, and they start whining about how come you're not paying attention to the fighters we like. And I'm just like, hey, look, this guy here is good. You can go out there and worship and be a jock sniffer for whoever you want to be. But I just think it points to the fact that there's a certain amount of people in America that want cultural symbols and they rely upon them. And then if a Caitlin Clark, who is, I don't want to say the word disruptor, they feel very, very aggrieved that how dare that, number one, she be good, and number two, I think it's a downright shame. They'll claim racism, that other people will praise them.
Yeah, it's going to be fascinating. We'll see if she breaks the record on Sunday or when she breaks the record, whenever it is, if Don Staley takes a passive-aggressive shot at her way she did after making that game-winning shot.
You know what I want to see? And go ahead, tweet at me or text me if this happens. I actually want to see Caitlin Clark shoot 40 times this game. If she's up to about 20-some-odd shots at halftime, go ahead, Jason. I'll be at JB's house for the Super Bowl festa. It's like, hey, Kim, get over to the game. She's at 24 shots at halftime. You know what? I'm like, she's going for 70. She's trying to do like a Kobe Bryant to break the record. You know what? I'll watch. I promise you. I'll be like, JB, turn on the women's college basketball game, and I'll probably get kicked out. But I will request that we watch Iowa women's basketball. Yeah.
Are you old enough to remember when David Thompson and George Gervin were going for the scoring title, I think, in maybe 79?
Late 70s. Okay, I'm not old enough to remember it, but I do remember the story that one guy had this 60-point game, and I think they told the other guy, hey, you're going to need this amount of points, and it was this great, unbelievable duel. I actually recently saw a documentary on the Iceman, George Gervin, and they carved out a large segment of that. I'm just telling you, the thing about Caitlin Clark is going to be interesting, that when it comes to the tournament, and again, I don't want to use the term great white hope, but she's going to be like Jerry Cooney in 1982 to a lot of people, good and bad, as you face down against Larry Holmes. And unfortunately, that thing became completely racialized. I was a young kid when that happened. That's when I first started knowing what boxing was. And there have been documentaries done on it like Legendary Nights. And Larry Merchant has said that event that he covered ringside was probably the most tense situation that he could ever feel at a live sporting event. Like, it was palpable, like, what was going on and what was taking place.
I think I was in 8th grade when that fight was going on. And one of my best friends in 8th grade was a white dude named Shannon. And we argued about that fight. I was on Team Larry Holmes. It was like, Jay Cooney's going to get embarrassed. Yeah. He's not in the same class as Larry Holmes, and he was on the other side. But it was back when you had great fun. It wasn't intense argument. No. It was a fun argument. And when Larry Holmes, I can remember we watched the fight together, and Larry Holmes won, and I was right.
Hey, Jason, I think some of this audience that hate watches you every day, they are probably stunned that you rooted for Larry Holmes, even back then. Okay, so folks, let's go on the record. Jason Whitlock was rooting for the Eastern Assassin, Larry Holmes, that night. But when it comes to the March Madness Final Four, Caitlin Clark and the progress of Iowa, as long as they're in it, she will drive ratings. There's no doubt about it. She's going to drive ratings, and it goes all the way to the Final Four. And here's what's going to happen. A lot of people like you are going to say, see, this is great. She's a driver of an audience. She brings ratings. All right. But there's going to be the other people that say, oh, look at this. They're going to be very aggrieved by it. The same people that say that women's sports should be celebrated, that we need to support it, will now then have a problem because the only reason why a lot of us are watching is because of Caitlin Clark. So which is it? They're trying to have it both ways here.
Here's the best case scenario, in my opinion. Caitlin Clark and Iowa make the Final Four.
Right.
Lose in the semifinal round. But the ratings are enormous. And they actually dwarf the championship game. And Don Staley wins the championship game with hardly anyone watching. And when the numbers come out, she uses it to say, this is why I didn't play at BYU. And this is why America's racist, because, we were the best team and no one wanted to watch us, and it's racism. That would be a perfect script.